Hello, my name is Mike Willett at the Intertribal Council of Michigan's National Native Network. Welcome to the NNN webinar series on cancer risk reduction in Indian country. This webinar is titled E-Cigarettes and the Community. This technical assistance webinar is being hosted by the National Native Network, which offers technical assistance and resources for commercial tobacco prevention and control throughout Indian country and the Indian Health Service Clinical Support Center. Your presenter today is Sohaib Arif, MPH, health educator from the California Rural Indian Health Board. Sohaib has a Master's of Public Health from UC Davis School of Medicine in 2016. Sohaib has a bachelor's in biochemistry, a master's of public health, and extensive experience in biochemical as well as public health research and teaching. During graduate school, he was appointed as a smoke and tobacco ambassador to properly implement the smoke and tobacco-free policy. Currently, he is the health education specialist at the California Rural Indian Health Board, Incorporated, focusing on smoke and tobacco-related issues in Indian country. Other than clinical research experience with clinical research experience with cancer, he is also on the executive committee for the California Dialogue on Cancer. We're pleased to offer continuing education credits for participants in this webinar. No commercial interest support was used to fund this activity. This activity is designated one contact hour for nurses. And to obtain a certificate of continuing education, we ask that you please be registered for the course, participate in the webinar in its entirety, and submit a completed post-webinar survey. The survey will be issued out tomorrow after the webinar is completed. Learning objectives and outcomes for the webinar include, by the end of this webinar, participants will be able to differentiate between traditional and commercial tobacco and e-cigarettes, identify FDA-approved cessation resources from other products on the market, and explain and communicate the harms of e-cigarettes to their patients. And now at this time, I will go ahead and pass it over to Sohaib Arif. And you should have control, sir.
Thanks, Mike. Looks like I do have control now. Hi, everyone. My name is Sohaib. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you're from. I'm from the California Rural Indian Health Board, where I run all their tobacco programs. I'm originally from a small village in Pakistan, where I belong to a farming family. In my time there, I had the opportunity to grow many crops, and tobacco was one of them, and that's where I kind of got exposure to tobacco. And today we'll be talking about e-cigarettes in the community. Let's see if the slide did change. Good. This slide kind of covers the main topics we'll be going over in this training. Whenever I present to a new audience that I have not had exposure of talking to before, the first thing I like to do is to establish the differences between traditional sacred tobacco versus the commercial tobacco. The second thing we'll talk about is the electronic cigarettes, and what they are, what they do, they're harmful, and what we should do about them. And we'll finally finish off with the FDA-approved cessation products. First of all, I want to make it clear that there are many different ways of using tobacco in traditional ways, and there are many stories on how tobacco was introduced in our communities. There is not a one way to talk about tobacco in our community, so it's really important to understand the point that we don't use a broad paintbrush to talk about all the tribes as if they were the same when it comes to traditional tobacco. That being said, there are commonalities and similarities, and I've listed some of them on here, and we can use them as examples of distinguishing between traditional and commercial tobacco. Many stories emphasize the sacredness of the plant and its powers to both heal if used properly and to harm if used improperly. Some researchers say that the original tobacco was discovered as far back as 18,000 years ago, and this has been heavily cited and can be found in multiple research articles. And throughout history, to this day, traditional tobacco has had many spiritual and still does spiritual and physical benefits that many tribes and people have gained from. One common use is that traditional tobacco is used by medicine people for both healing and blessings, and it can be used to smudge. Another very useful traditional way is that it is given as a gift when welcoming guests to the community, or it can be used as an offering to request, to pray, or to share their knowledge and wisdom to elders that come to our communities. There are a lot of examples of traditional tobacco used to dispel insects and other pests. So this was used to preserve food back when there were no useful way of preserving food, or there weren't insect repellents and freezers. So that was another common use to preserve food. I like to talk about this. Theron P. Vigil, he's a known traditional storyteller. He's a dancer, singer from the Chumash Swordfish clan. And he said that tobacco can both give life and take life. It is a very powerful, potent, and magical being whose properties can cause great harm when abused. On the flip side, the tobacco can also provide great healings when not abused. He has done a lot of work in anthropology and storytelling. He has a master and a PhD, so he's a very well-known researcher as well. And this kind of shows us the importance of tobacco when used properly. Here, let's see if I can change the slide. Okay, here, good. Here I've kind of summarized both the traditional and commercial tobacco. Traditional tobacco is used as a prayer, offering to an elder, healer, as a sign of respect. It's used in ceremonies. It's used as medicine for pain. Whereas commercial tobacco, as we know, scarcely even contains any actual tobacco. It is the premeditated and conscious addition of chemical that leads to addiction to youth and our pretty much our whole generations. The big tobacco deliberately targets specific consumer groups based on their background, culture, and uses that against them to get everyone addicted from those groups. So this brings us to our question about which tradition we want to pass on to our next generation. Do we want to keep that a sacred tradition, a sacred understanding of tobacco, or we want to pass on the commercial addiction? And the answer, I think, is very clear on the type of way and the path we want to take when it comes to traditional and commercial tobacco. This Super Bowl ad, I don't know if we can show. Can we do that, Mike, or no?
Well, let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens.
Okay. Basically, this was up there a couple of years ago. This ad was run in selected markets, and there were a lot of complaints about this ad, but mainly what it does is it's someone who runs around the Super Bowl. Oh, we got it. We can see it. Good.
I don't know if we'll have to check and confirm that we have audio too, so make sure.
Can I have the control back, Mike?
Yep, I think you have control.
Okay, so pretty much the ads have been on the cigarettes were banned, in the 70s. The last one I think was aired in New Year's in 1971, and 43 years later, we have another product that can potentially do just as much harm, and kind of comes to the market again. So this was kind of way of getting around the marketing, and um, the the goal of the ad was that friends don't let friends smoke, but this is not smoking, so you should start using e-cigarettes instead. So this was a different way of getting into to the media and exposing and kind of marketing this product. So that this was an important turnaround for big tobacco. Okay, so what is an e-cigarette? So e-cigarettes were first developed in China by a pharmacist around 2003. His dad was a heavy smoker and died from lung cancer. He himself was also a heavy smoker, so he wanted to find a new way to uptake nicotine without smoking it through commercial cigarettes. And he developed a way to deliver nicotine electronically through an e-juice. They were introduced in the U.S. around the 2006. For the first couple of years, they weren't really that popular, and they also faced opposition from the big tobacco companies. But in the last few years, they've kind of taken on, especially among the youth and also young adults. Today, we'll be discussing how they're used, developed, advertised, and the laws in U.S. in other states, and we'll also have time to talk about what we can do as a community. E-cigarettes, so I'll talk more about the mechanism. So they come in a variety of formats. They can be disposable, reusable, or you can keep them forever, depending on how much money you invest into the products. Nicotine is dissolved in propylene glycol, common aerosol, also used in antifreeze. So it's dissolved in propylene glycol when a smoker takes a drag, or when a smoker sucks on the e-cigarette. A small battery and a microprocessor controls a heater, and this releases a warm nicotine vapor, what they call it a vapor, but it can also be called aerosol. Depending on the type of cigarette and the amount of nicotine delivered, can be very different depending on the juice you have and depending on how hard the hit is. So this can be variable depending on a lot of other factors. It can change the nicotine content that you receive in your body. The act of smoking an e-cigarette is also called vaping, inhaling the vapor. So if it can be liquefied, it can be vaped. So this type of delivery system can be used for smoking marijuana, methamphetamine, and heroin, and we'll discuss some of that later in our presentation. But pretty much anything that can be liquefied, it can be smoked. So can I, okay. Types of e-cigarettes, although we are referring to them as electronic cigarettes, technically they're referred to as electronic nicotine delivery systems, also known as ENDS. They can be known as e-cigarettes, electronic cigarettes, hookahs, e-cigars, and there's a lot of terms people can use when they're talking about e-cigarettes. They come in many shapes and forms, as you can see in the pictures. There's really big ones, there's small ones. The disposable ones look like the regular cigarettes on the bottom, and they usually have average of 200 puffs. And the bigger ones can, you can change the e-juice in them, and you can, keep them as long as you want. If you put a lid on them, you can often look like a pen or a mascara, so kids can kind of hide that from their parents and their teachers if they're at school by just putting a lid on them, so it doesn't look like a cigarette, it just looks like a regular pen. The sale of electronic cigarettes has been steadily rising, and over the few years they've been in the market, they've kind of experienced tremendous increase. As you can see, from 2013 to 2014, the sale almost doubled from 1.5 billion to 2.8 billion, and in 2017 the sales could read up to $10 billion. But there's a lot of things being done, as we'll talk about, in federal regulations that hopefully can slow down this increase in sales. And I'll move on to the next slide. Okay, so one of the most effective way to make sure that these sales do not continue to rise, or more importantly, to prevent the public, especially the youth, from picking up these habits is through policy change. And after many years of push from public health professionals, public themselves, and effective strategizing, finally on May 10, 2016, the U.S. Food Drug Administration, FDA, published a final rule to begin regulating e-cigarettes, cigars, pipes, tobacco, hookah, and all other tobacco products. In 2016, the FDA finalized the rule extending the regulatory authority to cover all tobacco products, including vaporizers, vape pens, hookahs, electronic cigarettes. So pretty much all of these products that would kind of be considered ends. And FDA now regulates the manufacturing, import, packaging, labeling, advertising, promotion, sales, distribution of these products. And this also includes the components and parts. So not just the things that have nicotine in them, but also the things that can deliver nicotine. But this does not include accessories. So that would be like pouches, things that you would use to decorate or carry these products. These regulations can differ depending on what states you reside in. And I know there's a lot of people from different states on here. So this is something you can kind of look up yourself. But in California, they passed laws that we consider tobacco products, all e-cigarettes as tobacco products. So all the tobacco product regulations kind of apply to e-cigarettes. In California, the age is 21, so you also have to be 21 to purchase e-cigarettes now. But if you are purchasing them online, you can kind of get away from that, because I was at a training couple months back, and they talked about a research study where they kind of give money to teenagers and cards, and about 95% of the time teenagers could buy e-cigarettes from these websites, and they would be delivered to their homes, and the mail person would just come to the door and leave the product there, and then you can just come and get it later, depending on, even if you're like one or two, it doesn't really matter. You just have to know how to use the debit or a credit card. And so regulation in every state, but also in county, can be different. So this is different. One thing also is the taxation can also vary. In California, for state taxes, obviously not for federal taxes. In state taxes, California, we take two different measures where regulations comes from for the e-cigarettes. So if you're talking about taxing the tobacco products that don't contain nicotine, so the actual cigarette or the metal piece itself won't be under the state tax, but it will still be regulated. So that authority comes from another proposition. So it can kind of vary depending on where you are significantly. Like any industry, e-cigarettes, industry has their advantages, their weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. They have a lot of support from the consumers that they're selling these products to, but at the same time, these e-cigarettes are also associated with smoking, so that's a downside for them. That's kind of hurt them, and that's I'm saying that's a good thing. And they're getting a lot of support from many different markets, so that's a big opportunity for them. So they can, leverage their resources from those markets, and have increased sales. Their threats can be taxation from big pharma and some others. So those industries can kind of be a threat to them. And if you have questions, we can go over why that can be. But that's kind of understandable that they're competing for the same consumers in the same market. But so what is the impact of e-cigarettes? So we'll go over that and what they can do to humans, and what kind of ways they've utilized to get ahead in the market. So e-cigarettes are normalizing or renormalizing a smoking behavior. This behavior is becoming cool again. It's becoming the new norm. I'll be going through the next slides pretty fast because they're mostly pictures, but you'll get the gist of what I'm talking about. E-cigarettes, as a tobacco control worker, we think of this as the traditional way of targeting youth for tobacco use. Tobacco use, fruits, candy flavors have always been known as a way to target kids for cigarettes. In 2014, I did some research, I think back then, and I got numbers from them. There were about 7,700 unique e-cigarette flavors available online, and with an average of more than 250 new flavors being added per month. So that's probably gone up a lot more since then. I don't know what the new numbers are, but you can see these numbers are changing fast depending on what kids are, consuming nowadays. So they look at that and, come up with that flavor and then add that to their website inventory. Advertising. As we open, I showed the TV advertisement. The advertisement has been similar to the old themes that Big Tobacco used previously: cool, freedom, sexy, glamorous, and they've kind of utilized the executives, the marketing executives that were used by Big Tobacco companies, and the same people are kind of marketing these e-cigarettes and all these other vaping products. You can see. Let's go back. So this right here, you can see this ad targets women. Rewrite the rules similar to the theme. You can come a long way, baby, in the past, and also shows that this kind of makes you thin, and so they're using thin models, so they can advertise to make it look like that this will make you thin. They're using billboards. They're using memes to appeal to the young people. You can see I don't always vape, but when I do, I choose Vapor Shark. So this is by Vapor Shark. I don't even know why they have Santa Claus there, but they're using common themes that people relate to, and then they'll put that on a billboard. They're targeting the plugged generation. Think about how often our children use electronic instruments. From time to time, from preschool even, they start using tablets and cell phones and gaming stations. And this is kind of the way that they've kind of e-cigarettes are kind of also used. You can just plug it into your laptop and charge the device. So it's kind of really easy for the young generation to use this as accessible as they want it to be. So they don't even have to use a lighter. You can just plug it into your laptop and it will be charged. They have their own language. The language is very changing. And as you can see, vape is the act of using an e-cigarette. Mod is the modification of an e-cigarette. We'll talk about that. So 710 is the marijuana wax that can be used as a vaporizer in e-cigarettes. So these language changes very fast, and it's developing over the few years that e-cigarettes have been in the market. Companies pay celebrities and filmmakers to place products in their movies, and just so they can be seen with the products, and paparazzis can take pictures, and they can end up on the internet. Influencers have become the new norm for marketing. Beside regular celebrities like Robert Pattinson, Miley Cyrus, they are also using YouTubers, because a lot of the young generation now uses YouTube. So a lot of YouTubers will, have blogs, and they'll put up videos on e-cigarettes, and that has been a really good way of advertising for them. They track celebrities on who's becoming more popular, so they'll advertise with them more, and then who's becoming less popular, so they'll take away their marketing strategies away from those. So they're pretty lively on who they're picking as a person of advertising. Social media memes can be created without permission of use of characters by almost anyone with a computer and a Photoshop type of program. You can even use internet. There's meme generators where you can just take a picture and put any text on there, and you can use that and share it on your social media. And that's really fast, and a lot of youth are using these. You can see there's some celebrities on there. There's Toy Story, so it can pretty much market to any type of people at any age. YouTube search, I did this, I think, a couple of weeks ago when I was working on this presentation, and it came up with about 309,000 hits of how to modify your e-cigarettes. One thing I forgot to talk about is that some people are using this new technique called dipping. Dripping, like I said, this is changing very fast. So these new technologies come very fast, and new modifications and new terms that they're using. Dripping is a more labor-intensive method of vaping, in which the user manually applies a few drops of liquid directly to the exposed heating coil. This kind of makes bigger puffs, and it gives you more nicotine in your system. So this is a very recent phenomenon that just picked up. Google, through the use of keywords and other search engine tricks, the main link on Google are for e-cigarette products, and those are pro. So the first 6 pro ads, and then there were 3 other health ads on the first page. So you can see they use these tricks to kind of be on the top. So kids will get to the pro cigarette ads before they get to the cons. And there were over 11 million hits on Google when I searched e-cig. They use internet pop-ups. Ads for e-cig companies pop up on popular websites. When you press enter, it kind of takes you to confirm if you're 18. If you just click yes, they don't, that's the only way they confirm. You just click yes, and then you can kind of see what they have on their website. So it's kind of a way to allure you from your website to their own websites. We already talked about social media, and then you can see celebrities like Kylie Jenner and others have kind of taken on, and they'll use Snapchat and Instagram, live, those kind of social media things to promote e-cigarettes, and you can see them live and see what they do. It can be easily used for drug use. I got, I think, 170,000 hits when I clicked and searched e-cigs for marijuana. If it can be, liquefied, it can be vaped. So, and that can happen with marijuana. And you can see when you vape marijuana is that you might not even get the odor. So people next to you, your kids, can be using marijuana in their e-cigarettes, and you might not even know about it. High schoolers and middle schoolers, the use is increasing rapidly. 2013 to 14, the high schoolers, went from 4.5 to 13%, and middle schoolers went from 1.1% to 3.9% in 2014. So you can see in just 1 year how this has changed. I don't have the new data on me yet, but I'm pretty sure it's gone up drastically, as there was really anything done in between 2014 and 16. So those got really popular at that time. The sucky thing is that teens who use e-cigarettes are 3 times more likely to try actual cigarettes in just only a year. The research also shows that a lot of teens who are more likely to quit, they won't quit, but they'll continue using e-cigarettes. So those are 2 things that we can use to kind of educate our kids that use e-cigarettes, that they're more likely to try e-cigarettes along the lines. In February 2016, President Obama signed a bill that requires childproofing liquid nicotine packages, because there were a lot of calls to the U.S. poison centers because of exposure to children when they were playing around with these products. So those calls went up drastically in 2014, so that kind of pushed for more regulations. So they kind of came up with this childproofing, lids that you can see on other products too. So that was nice that they put those on there so kids can be safe. We'll talk more about the harms of e-cigarettes now. Diacetyl, it is approved for flavoring by FDA for consumption. That's eating. That is not smoking or putting it into your lungs. There hasn't been research showing that that is safe. And this artificial butter flavoring, which is diacetyl, is found in microwave popcorn. It's never been approved for respiratory use, and it's someone who uses this can get a popcorn lung. This right here was actually an advertisement by an expensive e-cigarette juice company. So what they say is If you use hours, you won't get popcorn lung, but that's not the case. You can still get popcorn lungs when it doesn't really matter where you're getting your liquid from. 47 out of 51 e-cigarettes flavorings tested had diacetyl in them. This has been going around. I'm sure some of you have already seen this. I saw this on Facebook a few months ago. E-cigs exploding on Idaho man's face. There's a lot of other videos and pictures going around as well on Facebook and other social media, which kind of show that these explode on your face or in your pockets or when you're charging at night. And this can definitely cause fire hazards and cause harm to the body. Other adverse effects of vaping. Here are some of the short-term adverse effects that come from vaping. Many of them are similar to regular cigarettes, like irritation, blurry vision, blood pressure, vomiting, and there can be others. I've listed a few of them on here. Chest pain, and those can kind of lead to long-term effects as well, like regular cigarettes do. But another thing we need to remember is we can't forget about nicotine, still commonly present in e-juices, and there are all these harmful effects that were in regular cigarettes that came from nicotine. Those are still true when you are vaporizing them, because you're still taking in nicotine. Until you're 25, your brain is very plastic, and these addictive substances like nicotine and THC, the one in marijuana, can alter the brain chemistry, which can never be recovered even after many years. So those are very harmful for your body in that sense. It's just not harmless water. Vapor contains diacetyl, propylene, glycol, like we talked about, nicotine, and other heavy metals. There have been possible carcinogens also found in vapor and also in e-liquids that people consume, and short-term exposures has negatively impacted on lung function. And a few research, I've just listed one, but there's other research that lists the same things. In meta-analyses, studies, you can find that this is harmful for lung function. Cessation, we'll move on to cessation. E-cigarettes are not FDA approved for cessation devices. I know a lot of doctors can recommend this, not recommend this, but when you ask them, hey, can I use this as a cessation resource? And they're like, okay. And that's something we can talk to our medical providers about. Most studies show dual use of e-cigarettes, so people don't just stop using their actual cigarettes. They'll start using both the e-cigarettes and the regular combustible cigarettes, and that's been found in many studies. We've already talked about this. The smokers that use e-cigarettes are 1/3 less likely to quit than smokers who do not use e-cigarettes. So it kind of gets in the way of your cessation more so than it helps you with it. These are the 7 FDA-approved tobacco cessation medications. The NRTs are the nicotine replacement therapies. They provide enough nicotine to eliminate or reduce the withdrawal symptoms when people stop using their tobacco. The first 3, 4, 5. The first ones are the NRTs, and the bottom ones are the bottom 2 are medications that don't have nicotine in them. Whenever you are talking to a patient about using either nicotine replacement therapies or any other drug that is even FDA approved for cessation, the first thing you want to do is that they talk to their physician, because the 2 medications on the bottoms, they can be the bupropion is an antidepressant. The mechanism in tobacco use cessation is not known. It can be contraindicated for people with history of seizures, heavy alcohol use, head trauma, which is common for smokers, and it can lead to anorexia and bulimia. So something definitely you need to talk to the medical provider before you can kind of push on your patients. Nicotine replacement therapies should not be, they have they have risks such as heart condition or unstable chest pain. So that's something also that needs to be considered, not just for the bottom medication, but also on the top ones. You need to still talk to the medical provider. And that's something that is always good that you started a couple weeks before you set a quit date with your patient. So they have everything cleared out before they can buy these, because a lot of these, like you can see, the first two are prescriptions. So if that's something that you need to do, you need to have that ready before you set a quit date. And over-the-counter ones as well. So you have a lot of insurances. This can vary. If these station resources can vary depending on insurance, which county you are in, and which kind of classes that are required before you can actually take these prescriptions. So this is something that needs to be taken care of before you set a quit date. And a lot of studies have shown different efficacies of cessation for these products. I was at a training with American Lung Association a couple of weeks ago, and this just said that NRTs can have quit rate of up to 20 to 30%. Zyban is around 30%, and Chantix is the most successful one, is about 40%. These numbers can be a lot higher when other things like individualized help, group cessation, and other kind of support are provided with these therapies, and that can increase the cessation rate a lot. For example, the Freedom from Smoking is a cessation program that I attended by American Lung Association, and their quit rate is usually around 60% when they combine it with these either NRTs or with other medications. 1-800-LUNG-USA, I put that on there. So if you have any questions regarding if this is covered, if this is not covered, I'm not an expert on policy and insurances, but they're really good at answering these questions, and I've had questions and they've been really helpful answering those. These right here are the over-the-counter stations that include patches, gums, and lozenges. These are for these you need prescription, and these are the nasal spray inhalers. I can never pronounce this word. Bupropion and Chantix. That's why I just call it Chantix, but there's other common products by that drug, which is insulin. What can we do? First of all, we need to establish that we don't play the blame game when it comes to quitting smoking and blame people who smoke. First step is to stop calling them smokers anyways. They are not smokers, they're humans who smoke, and they can be humans who do not smoke. If we provide them with enough support and resources. We must also educate ourselves on which policymakers are taking tobacco money, and look at their voting records and be aware of the industry tricks. And so we can plan ahead of them instead of behind them every single time. Policy change is one of the best way to strike big tobacco. We can amend tobacco policies to include e-cigarettes and e-cigarettes in them, and all the other delivery system. I know some of our tribes, they have banned public use of e-cigarettes altogether. Taxation is a big one. Because that raises prices and discourages consumers from buying these products. So that's another good way. Some states use this. Some cities also, and counties, they have their own tax. They have their own regulations. So states and cities can start taxing e-cigarettes. I know we just passed Proposition 57, which will include e-cigarettes in them. So we'll be taxing that in California. Environmental change. So if you end up, having a policy that is no smoking policy, and you included e-cigarettes in them, make sure that you write that on a sign and on your postages. So when you post, everyone is aware that e-cigarettes are included in the policy. So it makes the enforcement that much easier. Educate everyone is just the common theme. In some surveys, I think in 2014, they found, that's when I was talking about doctors, up to 85% of doctors and pharmacists believe that e-cigarettes could be used as a cessation tool. So that's something that we need to educate everyone, and not just ourselves, but also health education professionals that are not aware of this, because this is such a new phenomena that's kind of taken up as a storm, and not everyone's up to speed with all these things. So it's good that we take our time and we educate everyone that we come in contact with. And if you have any more questions, please feel free to contact me. I would love to help. I don't have all the answers, but I can, possibly find people who do. So if you have questions, ask. I'll try to find the answers to best of my extent. I think we can open up to questions now. Mike?
All right. Well, thank you very much, Sohaib. We appreciate your presentation and your time today. Let me see here. So it looks like we've got a couple of questions that have already come in. If you have any questions, folks, feel free to go ahead and write your questions into the question box, and I'll go ahead and read it aloud. We'll go ahead and do questions and answers all the way until about 4 o'clock Eastern, top of the hour, or 1 o'clock Pacific. The first question that we got here, this person asks, is there always nicotine in the vape oils?
Okay, so there isn't always nicotine in them, but the labeling has been kind of not regulated so far. So even if it says that there's no nicotine in the product, a lot of time that it does contain nicotine. And there have been instances where it says it does contain nicotine, but you run it through your chemical analyses, and there won't be nicotine in them. And a lot of time the listed nicotine levels are not what they are in the actual product. So all these can be very different. And as you can see, when it's going to start being taxed, they can lie about this. So that gives them an incentive to list the product as a low nicotine content, so they can get away from taxes, when in case it can have a lot more nicotine in them. So this really depends on the company that is making that e-juice and the person who's kind of selling it. So there's no really product that I can 100% say this has no nicotine in them. So they kind of play around with their words, and they're really good at it when it comes to these labelings. So they can lie to you, and they won't be questioned. FDA is going to start regulating these products, but as we know, FDA can be a little slow when it comes to this kind of stuff. So it'll take a few years before we can kind of have them hold them accountable for what they put on there is what it actually is in there. So to your question, yes, there are products available that do not have nicotine in them, but we can never be sure.
All right, great. Then we have another question here. This person says, you mentioned the childproof packaging, but from what we've heard in Michigan, some states that implemented this requirement before the federal legislation found that the childproof packaging makes it so that the nozzle cannot fit into the e-liquid reservoir in most e-cigarettes and mods, requiring the user to transfer the liquid to a different non-childproof vial in order to properly apply it to the reservoir. We haven't heard that this problem has been addressed yet by the Federal Consumer Product Safety Commission. So I think they were just maybe looking for your comment on that.
That was a long question, so I'm not sure if I properly understood this. Like with any other products, there can be policies, but implementing of these policies is all, that's a whole different level, that we can, talk about. A lot of time, you'll have regulations, but they won't be regulated. You can have policy, but it might not be regulated. So I think that might be what you're pointing at. Even with childproofing lids, there have been cases where they have been opened by children. So that's what I would say.
Okay. Again, folks, we'll be taking questions all the way till the top of the hour here, so about another 11 more minutes. So feel free to go ahead and type in your question into the question box there. This next person says, have you found much research on stats of use of e-cigarettes in native populations?
There were a few articles that I was looking at that were showing that in native populations, the use of e-cigarettes was a little lower. But then again, this could be mainly because we have a high prevalence of regular cigarettes. So a lot of those people, don't use e-cigarettes. But as with anything, these when they target, specific community groups, these prevalences can go up and down, and most likely they will go up when a lot of rural areas do get these vape shops built. This is a new product, so it might be taking a little while for it to catch on. But I'm not very hopeful, I guess, in that sense. They always have their agenda, and they'll try to get everyone on with it, and but as far as I've seen, the e-cigarettes are less. But I have two of the tribes that I'm working with currently. They have told me that a lot of their youth are turning toward e-cigarettes, and I think one of the gentlemen was saying, I don't even know what this is. They're just big puffs of smoke coming from these kids' mouths. So we're definitely looking more into native youth picking up these products. But yes, a lot of our people are going to pick up e-cigarettes, and a lot of them are already using it.
Alrighty. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to type them into the question box there. We'll probably be going for about another 8 more minutes. What was the website address to find who is being influenced politically by the tobacco industry? They say they missed it while it was on the screen, so I can go ahead and type it in as well. What was that website address, Sohaib?
Let me see. There you go.
This one here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's www.centerfortobaccopolicy.org, correct? Let's see here. And then this next person says, what community do you think is more affected in terms of the consumption of tobacco?
When it comes to groups, I want to say that our youth is the most affected by this, and it's catching on to young adults as well. If you go to pretty much any cafe, outside you'll have youth smoking e-cigarettes. That's becoming a very norm, especially since we didn't address e-cigarettes as cigarettes. When it came to policy, a lot of kids thought it was okay to just smoke. So I think children are at the most risk with cigarettes, and also with electronic cigarettes. So that part hasn't changed one bit. That's where it starts, and I think that's one of the main places where we should strike when it comes to tobacco policy, or even education.
Excellent. Again, we'll be taking questions here for another about 5 or 6 more minutes. We do want to give a plug for our website, www.keepitsacred.org. Also, feel free to follow us on social media, facebook.com/keepitsacred, twitter.com/keepitsacred, or follow us at keepitsacred. And then we also want to really push strongly our LinkedIn account as well. It's linkedin.com/company/keepitsacred. So feel free to follow the National Native Network on social media, and make sure that you visit our website for latest events, webinars, newsletters, any kind of articles or research dealing with commercial tobacco and cancer prevention in Indian country. Make sure that you follow us on our website and social media. We have another question here. Again, if you have questions, feel free to come into the question box there. Next question says, the state of Idaho some other states are starting to implement a tobacco 21 law. No one under 21 can purchase tobacco. Do you believe this will see a rise in cigarettes since they are still able to purchase them at 18?
So from my understanding, the state is making the regular cigarettes 21, but they're not regulating their electronic cigarettes at the age.
The question, I think, says that there's like a disparity between the commercial tobacco age and the e-cigarette age. So do you think that e-cigarettes are going to go up to 21?
I think e-cigarettes will go up regardless of the the um, the um, the age of let's say regular cigarettes. The problems will go up anyways. So I don't think that that's necessarily a bad move from the state part to increase the age for regular tobacco or cigarettes. So that I don't think it will help in any way that kids will start picking up more e-cigarettes because they can't use regular cigarettes because if they have a will, they'll find a way in that sense. So more regulations are better, whether it be on e-cigarettes or it be on regular commercial tobacco. What it does, in my opinion, is it kind of sets a tone for the whole community on what direction you're going as not just a community, but I guess as a whole state, that we are, moving away and we're becoming more attuned to our health. And I think that will not affect the AIDS because they can get it online anyways. So if they can, like I talked about the study earlier, if they know how to use a debit card, they can still find it. So even if that age was used. Even if the age was 21, if they can still find it, that's going to be still a problem. And a lot of time, the age can be kind of I would say weird because a lot of time the purchasing age and the ability to use age is different because a lot of time a state might have a policy where they say, oh, you can't buy this until you're 21, but you can still smoke it if you have it.
Okay. I think we have time for one more question if somebody has just one more comment or question they wanted to make. One person here says, in California, the age for any tobacco product, including e-cigarettes, is now 21 years of age. So,
yeah, in California, it's 21, but I think the federal limit is still 18. And another thing I kind of did not mention in the presentation, which I think I will include now, is that the age, even in some states where it's 21, that doesn't mean our military community. Even if the age limit is 21 in a state, but if you are with the military, you can still purchase it at 18. So a lot of these laws that do apply to our regular populations that are state and federal, they don't necessarily apply to our military population. So that's another thing. Okay. Even if it's like a military school, and that being, if you can be drafted for your life, you should be allowed to smoke. So that's kind of been another issue with some of the health education people have talked about, that they want to tackle this, but the policies don't always address this with the military community.
Right. Okay, well, it doesn't look like we have any other questions here, so we'll go ahead and wrap up the presentation. We want to thank everybody for attending, and thanks Sohaib for presenting for us today. For folks that are looking for continuing education credits, we'll go ahead and send out the survey to everybody that had registered and attended the webinar tomorrow. Please have that completed within the next week. We'll go ahead and send those out and get everybody set up with their continuing education credits. We're also going to go ahead and archive this webinar at keepitsacred.org. Stay tuned to our social media that you see on the website, or that you see on the screen right now. And we'll go ahead and send out an update when we have the webinar archive uploaded onto the website. And make sure you stay tuned for our upcoming newsletter that's going to be distributed out later on this month. And we'll have some announcements coming up on future webinars as well. Thank you very much, and we hope everybody has a fantastic rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you, Sohaib.